All right, let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us is Jo-Anna Nieves. Jo-Anna, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. And I want to get your thoughts on the direct examination thus far. And as I was saying earlier to Judge Ashley, you know, you hear one thing and then you're saying, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. Then you hear something else, then it doesn't quite jive and fall into place. You know, this whole thing is supposed to have been done knowingly, and then she leaves him there to die in the snow. But all of her actions, as being described by Jen McCabe, one of the state witnesses, to me, flies in the face of that, unless she's this really conniving person who's coming up with all this stuff in order to cover up what she had done earlier. I'm not sure what to make of it. What about you?
Same. I mean, there are a lot of things that don't add up in this witness's testimony, and it raises questions in my mind and probably in the jurors as well. When we hear her saying things like, oh, well, you know, Karen called and she's screaming and she's hysteric in the background, and Jen is a person that she chose to call in that moment, but Jen doesn't even have her phone number to call her back. I think that that's such a strange part of the testimony. And even the portion where she says she's texting them and saying like, hey, are you here? Pull behind me. But then, no, I had no reason to go out and check on them. Or even, you know, the follow-up of like, I'm guiding these people to this home and I'm not concerned about why they never entered. I think that there's a lot of questions about this elaborate cover-up that Karen must be engaging in order to back her story. And there might be some real weight to the defense's theory about what may have actually gone on inside of this house.
I agree. And all this time, Judge, there's supposed to be a body laying in the front lawn by the flagpole. You know what I mean? So it's just people are coming and going.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, even if you call on the home phone, if you really want to get a number, you used to be able to press like *67 or whatever it was and get the number that called you. Yeah, there are ways. Oh, you've heard of this. There are ways to do it. Let me ask you this. On cross-examination, this defense team we know is zealous. I think they're going to do a very thorough, sifting cross-examination of every detail, or would you leave it to not do quite as much and just attack a few main points if it were you?
I think the main points are going to be important for the jury, but part of the defense strategy is going to be attacking every detail. I mean, that's where the holes are created, right? We want to make sure that they prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. And by poking holes in all of the details, that's where the doubt comes in. So I think that they'll be strategic in doing that.
Now, as far as what happened with the truck, she even mentions in the phone call, Jo-Anna, that she had a broken taillight. That again sort of leads me to believe that in her mind, and then she even tells her, she even admits, she says to her, I don't even remember really being there, you know, so what does that do in terms of the charges against her? Let's say we begin to accept as a jury that she doesn't really have a real good memory of what happened that night. Does that still make her guilty if they think it happened the way the state does of the top charge?
I think ultimately they will end up, if we take everything that's being said as true, it could, if we take everything she's saying as true, I don't know that they'll make a finding of guilt in the top charge if we're saying she doesn't actually remember and maybe she was under the influence and like some of this is kind of coming back to her at a later point in time. But realistically, it would be a far stretch of the imagination to take all of these points as true. And I think that there's something with this phone call that just doesn't add up in terms of why Karen would be calling and making all of these admissions on the phone with Jen McCabe.
It is kind of, I agree. It just doesn't sit right.
And that's the theme throughout their case. All the interactions, the phone calls, the hip dialing, all that stuff. It just all kind of makes like, you can't quite get to it.
Right.
Some doesn't feel right. There it is. All right, we'll take a break here. Coming up, more testimony in the Karen Reed murder retrial. Plus, Court TV's...
Just as a way to say thank you for helping. So we all went to the store together, and then John took Kerry and myself to the hillside for lunch.
How many years before this moment was that?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think that's when my daughter was in kindergarten or first grade, and at this point she was in 8th grade, so like 7 years.
Had you ever spent any other time with Kerry Roberts before this morning?
No.
Were you friends at that point?
No.
How would you consider your relationship with Miss Roberts on that morning when Miss Reed arrived to your home?
I had met her once, and that was the extent of it. I wouldn't say I knew her at all, beyond that one time I went out with her.
Okay, I want you to take us back now to when you first hear the defendant in your driveway yelling. When you hear that, do you hear any words, or is it general yelling?
So I hear yelling. So I was downstairs making coffee. I go to my front door and I open it, and she's screaming, "Jen, Jen!" She's screaming that 3 times, and then she was saying, "We have to go to Fairview." You know, a lot of the "could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" Just she was on repeat.
What did you do?
Not good.
After you meet the defendant at your door, do you let her in, or does she stay outside?
I'm not sure if I just grabbed my coffee and ran out,
Where did you
or
go?
whether she came in. So we went down my walkway. She was just kind of running all around. The driver's door was open, so I told her I was going to drive because I thought she was too hysterical to drive. In the meantime, all of a sudden there was a car at the end of my street, and there was a plow behind it.
The car that came to the end of your street, do you know where it went?
I meant the end of my driveway, I'm sorry.
When you say the end of your driveway, did it pull into your driveway?
No, it just kind of stopped right at the base of my driveway.
Okay. How far behind your car was that car?
Not far, not too far.
Okay. Did you know who was in that car?
No.
Did you learn who was in that car?
Yes,
How did you learn who was in the car?
because I said, "Who is that?"
Did you ask the defendant, or did you walk
I
up?
asked the defendant, and she told me it was Carrie Roberts.
Did you meet Carrie Roberts face to face in your driveway that morning?
Yes, I wouldn't say we met. It was more of a, the plow was coming, so then she was having to like move down the street, and then either Karen called her or she called Karen, but they were on the phone, Karen's phone over the car, so they started talking.
Did you get into the defendant's car?
Yes, we did. I got in the car with Miss Reed.
When you got in the car, you were in the driver's seat. Was Miss Reed in the passenger front?
Yes,
You said there was an open call. Is this something you could hear on a speaker?
yes.
At that point, had you had a chance to go and look at the taillight of that car?
No,
Did you have any interest in the taillight at that point?
no.
There was an open call between who?
Karen and Carrie Roberts.
Can you describe what you heard in that call?
Karen was saying that she wanted to go to Fairview, and Carrie Roberts was instructing her that no, we weren't going to be going to Fairview, and she kept saying, "We got to go to your sister's house," and Carrie Roberts said, "No, we're not going to be driving around in this weather in 2 cars. Let's go back to John's. Let's go to Meadows. Let's go see if he's there." That was kind of the conversation. And then Karen was doing a lot of screaming, and Carrie was kind of yelling back at her to shut up.
Who was taking charge of the situation that morning?
Carrie Roberts.
Were you in charge of it?
No.
Did you weigh in or make any decisions on where you were going to go next, or were you just a listener?
I just listened. Carrie said that Carrie's kind of a take-charge person. She said, "We're going to Meadows." So I said, okay. I drove to Meadows.
Now, at this point, you didn't know Carrie Roberts other
No.
than that meeting,
Yes, correct.
and you agreed to follow her?
Yes.
So tell us what happens. Take us through the drive.
She might have followed me. I'm not sure, but we drove back to Meadows, pulled into the driveway.
So you knew where Meadows was. You had been there many times for the kids.
Yes.
You think Miss Roberts may have followed you?
Yes.
What was the weather conditions as you were driving?
They were awful. It was, I was driving very slow, cautiously. It was dark. It was hard to see. It was that type where the snow was like coming at your window.
How long of a ride was it from your home to John's home?
Approximately 5-6 minutes.
Was there any other phone calls while you were in the car with Miss Roberts, or did the phone calls end?
I believe that was it.
Can you describe the defendant's demeanor on the trip from your house to John's house?
She was just screaming, yelling things. It was almost like everything she said 3 times. And she just went from one thing to the next. She was quite hysterical.
Do you remember what she was yelling?
Still with us, criminal defense attorney Jo-Anna Nieves. Thank you so much for still being here. Listen, she was kind of hysterical. She was yelling, did I hit him? Have I hit him? Yelling, screaming. Okay, I don't think that's out of character for someone who is trying to find their boyfriend who she's afraid something has happened to. I don't think there's anything yet that really is a huge win for the Commonwealth.
I agree. I think you can take this multiple ways, right? Like either she may have engaged in an act that she didn't do intentionally and now she's spazzing out about it and, cannot control her outbursts and her emotions, or she, some of this commentary is being fed to her or, being made up by the witness in terms of what was actually being said in the midst of the hysterics. Because when somebody can't find their partner for hours on end, anybody in their right or wrong mind would be hysterical.
Mm-hmm. They would be hysterical, Jo-Anna, but I gotta say, if, you put yourself in that position, and I think we've all been there once or twice.
Of panic.
Yeah, of panic. Mm-hmm. You drop somebody off at a house. What is with this saying, did I hit him? I think in her mind, she knows she hit something, right? Now, whether she knows she hit him or not, I think that's another issue. But the fact that that's the thing that's coming to her mind tells me she knows she hit something.
I think this is where we go back to whether or not we're taking what the witness is saying as true. Like, is this really what Karen is saying? Are we going to hear later that she admits making those comments? Or is this something that's kind of being fed to the jury as the storyline? And I think it just depends on which take we're going with. Is this the cover-up conversation, or is Karen really trying to reconcile the fact that, yeah, maybe she did do something and now she's coming to terms with it?
Yeah, the only thing I will say is there are other people, the EMT, for instance, at the scene, who's saying she's saying the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I maybe she thinks she hit something, but it could have been anything. I don't know. This one is, I don't know. We'll see what that black box says. That's going to be key in this second trial. I agree with you. All right. Thank you so much, Jo-Anna, for joining us this hour. Always great to have you on.
Don't forget to like and share this video, and for more legal insights, keep watching and subscribe to our channel.